Okay, welcome to the Node.js Community NAPI team meeting for January 17th, 2019. We'll follow our sort of standard Node.js agenda, which is to look at the issues. So I'm just going to pull that up and then I'll share Node.js. Okay, issues, milestones. Okay, share. Okay, so one I'd actually like to add and talk about at the beginning is backports for TFS and TSFN. Okay, so I just think we should start with this one because it's kind of important and there's it links in with some stuff that's timely with the release working group. So I know, Gabriel, you've been in some of the discussions about getting TFSN backported. I think there's basically agreement that it can go into Assembler Minor and that there will be Assembler Minor done, I think, like end of March kind of time frame.
Yep, that's what Miles was saying, and
Yep.
it's going to have a few things in it. And I think 10 already has it, but we'll still need a round of PRs for marking it as non-experimental.
Right.
I'm not sure, is marking it as non-experimental Semver minor, because then we'd want the PR before,
Right. So that's what I wanted to get on is that it's even more than that in that there's not really even non-Sember Minor releases to get it into otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, should I roll the removal of the experimental flag into this PR, or
I think so. Like, I think we need to make it non-experimental in master first.
Right. Yeah, and it's
Right.
got to trickle down.
Right. So steps, it's basically one, make non-experimental. And I don't think that needs to wait. Like, we can make things non-experimental in master. So master will have support for one NAPI 1.4, nothing else will, right?
Yeah.
And then as we roll it backwards, I think that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, okay. So okay, but do we want to set the goal of NAPI 1.4 being non-experimental in Node 8?
Yes.
Okay. So then we need to roll this back quickly.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to have it on the agenda. It's like I think we need to get into master. 10 should happen just naturally, but 8, we want to. I think we have this one chance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in the release meeting, there was also a discussion about saying, hey, we should plan for something like releases kind of for napping, but not necessarily specifically, but like releases where you can get important changes in quarterly.
Okay.
So I have an action to write up some change to the governance to facilitate that. But it kind of shows that, for NAPI, we may have the opportunity to get important things in every 3 months.
That's good.
But in this case, it's the, especially because, yeah, you can have the argument whether making it non-experimental is Sember minor or experimental is like, so I think we just want to roll it into the one PR because it's otherwise we don't know when we will be able to necessarily.
Well, this Semver minorness of making it non-experimental is really questionable because the ABI doesn't change at all.
Well, except we may have made arguments earlier that while it's experimental, we can actually change, even make Sember major changes.
Oh, for sure.
And it's not Sember major.
Okay, but that's true. However, marking it as non-experimental means that by that action we freeze the ABI as it is, but it already is as it is.
Right, but it's if if we argue that it's not semver minor or major to change it while it's experimental, then when is it semver minor except for when you mark it as non-experimental?
Well, yeah.
So that's my point, is like I would make the argument that when you mark it as non-experimental, that is semver minor.
Ah.
Right? Because it's at that point where the commitment is that if you build something with it, you know, you can depend on it being there, right? Whereas before
Yeah.
that, while it's experimental, it's like, well, you can use it, but there's no guarantee, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, because like I think about this differently. I thought that the semverness refers to changes to the implementation, not changes to the governance of the implementation.
Well, so
You
this is
know?
the test I always use is if I build against something in version, say we've got version 1.1, right?
Yeah.
And I go back to 1.0 and that won't work, that's semver minor.
Right.
Right? So that's my standard thing. However, when we mark something as experimental, we're basically saying the semver rules don't apply.
Right.
Right? So even though, it's so it's an experimental, we make a change, we've added a whole new API in 1.1. Well, it's under experimental, so there's no guarantee.
Oh,
Right?
well.
So, but as soon as
Okay,
we,
wait. No, you're right. You're right.
yeah,
Because okay, for 8, it is semver minor, not because we're marking it as non-experimental, but because version 8.x minus 1 did not have an API, so it's definitely a semver minor for 8, right?
well, yeah, but I'm just saying, even if we landed as experimental and then we remove the experimental flag, I still think it's semver minor.
Well, okay.
But because otherwise, like only because we've said when it's experimental, the semver rules don't apply.
Sure, yeah, okay, but we haven't broken the ABI either, and we haven't added any ABI either. So, in effect, we've kept it that way. But okay, yeah, making things extra semver is never a bad idea.
Yeah.
So,
I know it's arguable, but I think you can't argue that it's never semver minor to introduce a new feature.
oh no, I can't argue
Because
that.
otherwise, under your thing, it's like, okay, it's not semver minor because it's experimental. It doesn't apply. And then when we mark it as unexperimental, it's if that's not semver minor, then you've got a new feature that was added, and there's no semver bump at either place. You know what
Well,
I mean?
yes.
Right?
It's like the code doesn't know that, the binary that runs against the release that wherein it's marked as experimental, and then runs against the release wherein it's no longer marked as experimental, doesn't see the difference because
The code doesn't see the difference, but the person who's using it, like basically we've said semver rules do not apply.
yeah,
So
okay, yeah.
they are now like, but after you take it off, no, semver rules do apply. And
Okay, all right.
I mean, I'm sure we could argue in circles, but I think
Yeah,
that
yeah,
in this
yeah.
case, we just need to make sure we get it in and before that time frame. I think.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then I will get the ball rolling on removing the experimentalness from
Yeah.
around around thread safe function.
So yeah, I've created this new issue, and I'm just going to leave it as one that we have on our agenda just to make sure.
Oh, wait. It's not. Wait, is it non-experimental? No. It's not in 10 yet. You wrote that it's already non-experimental in 10.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what you said. Sorry.
No.
Sorry that it's in 10, right?
It's backported. Yeah.
It's already in as experimental in 10.
Yes, as experimental. Yes.
That's what I meant. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It can't be. It's experimental everywhere today.
Yes, that's right.
So we need to make it non-experimental master, then roll that back to 10.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, so let's get back to then. So we got that one. Focus on async worker. I unfortunately have just been buried in things, so I haven't managed to do anything on that front. I don't know if anybody else has.
Ditto.
Okay. Investigate API to help avoid future breaking changes. This one, I know Glenn did a time implementation, which is on that list. And he, last I talked to him earlier this week, and he actually said that there was a bunch of comments from the owner, but it sounded like it would likely land.
Good.
And he's also was asking for what else he could work on. I suggested serial port. He reached out to the serial port maintainer who's interested, which I thought was the case because they've asked me a few times about that because I tried to start. And so I think that'll move forward as well.
Excellent.
And I guess, Nicola, you were going to talk to the maintainer of, or I guess you were going to bring bcrypt up to date and then talk to the maintainer there, right?
Yeah, I need to contact the maintainer. Sorry, and I will do this evening.
Okay.
And I will reference the issue on the Node repo, so you can see the how will go all the things.
I guess the same applies for microtime, right?
And microtime, I did the porting, and I have a paracast, and and even if Gabriel asked two maintainers if he could merge or or publish the module, but never received an answer.
Okay, so I guess we maybe still need to ping them again. How long ago was that?
In the last one is that pinged him is Gabriel, and it happened in November.
Okay. So maybe if you wonder, both of you can follow up again and just see.
Okay. I will ping both bcrypt and microtime maintainer.
How complicated was microtime? Like, is it?
It's very simple. It's
okay.
very simple.
Okay, so I guess it's like if they're still around, hopefully they'll land it. Otherwise, I don't know. Well, we can talk about it if that doesn't pan out.
Okay.
Node report, I think, is being. I'll edit that. Node report being merged into core. So I think that one will handle that way. SQLite, Jim has reached out to the maintainer to ask for some of his cycle time. Also on that front, Anisha, I think, has figured that she doesn't have enough time to continue working with us at IBM or on as a student on call. So we're not going to have her to help push that forward. But Jim, if you sounded like you'd have some cycles, so if you kind of want to take that over, that would be great.
Okay, I'll do that, Michael.
Okay. Let's see. Look down to the rest of this list. Serial port. I'm going to say edit. LAN here. I guess when we get Hitesh back, we should talk about level down. I don't think we got too much else. Oh, okay. So in 0MQ, we just have to see if anything. So okay. So I think if we just, those are some good actions. If we follow through on those, we can then come back to other things to see what we need to do. Okay. So I think I've already given an update on SQLite. Burning down the list of issues raised by module owners. Anything on that front we should talk about?
Yeah, I haven't had much of a chance. Sorry.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Look at
So,
any
okay.
new issues.
And create matrix of tested methods. I think that's the same thing. The other thing I thought we might touch on is, do we think it's time for another release of Node add-on API?
What do we have in since the last release?
So that's what I'm just pulling up. When was the last release? Updates.
Oh yeah,
okay.
we had a bunch of fixes from Philip.
Right. So the last release was November. Is that right? November, January. I guess it hasn't been. It's only been like 6 weeks. So, are any of those things we think are like we should get them out sooner than later?
I'm just looking at the patches, and well, there are memory leak fixes, but they do occur in rare circumstances when things actually error out.
Right.
So I don't know, for completeness sake, it might be good, but I'm not sure if we absolutely need to.
Yeah, looking at that, unless people are asking, we might wait a little longer.
Yeah, or to have some more changes accrue.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, wait a little longer, see that we have more stuff to put in, and yeah. Okay, if anybody else feels otherwise or things change, just open an issue to say, hey, let's have a release. But I thought it would be worth just quickly looking at that. That's all I have for this week. Anything? Any other topics?
Well, this void star data usage for property descriptors.
Which one was that?
That was the first commit, the one I landed from one of the PRs. Trying to figure out. Yeah, I guess yeah, this isn't that used because otherwise people would have complained about not being able to attach data to these descriptors, but it doesn't seem to be that much in demand. Yeah, so yeah, we're good.
Okay. Okay, any other topics we want to cover this week?
Trying to figure out. The way I just had a thought. I haven't had a lot of time to actually look into it. When we load add-ons and they are being loaded using the classical mechanism whereby you pass a data structure to Node, and the Node picks out the initializer from the data structure. At that point, we allocate memory because normally the Node module data structure is a global static inside the add-on, right? Because you declare it using Node module, and that basically declares a global static variable called underscore module or module underscore or whatever. The macro evaluates to the declaration of such a structure. But in our case, we need to heap allocate the Node module structure because our modules and API modules, they do not allocate a Node module structure. They allocate an API module structure, which is incompatible. And so when the library constructor comes in, it gives us this NAPI module structure, and we create a Node module structure, and then we call Node register or Node module register. And then it ends up calling us back and so forth. So it's a bit of a dance. But these structures that we heap allocate, we never free them, right? Mm-hmm. Which was not a problem so far. But now that we have module unloading, I was thinking about how we might be able to sort of either not heap allocate them or somehow free them. Mm-hmm. So so I think the heavy solution would be to attach like a cleanup handler, and then free it, along with the environment. But I'm not sure if we have access to the environment, because this is just a library constructor. It's very, very basic. It doesn't,
Mhm.
it doesn't have any integration with the Node.js environment at all. The other solution would be to statically declare it, like modify the implementation of the NAPI module macro to sort of follow the NAPI module definition with the node module definition. But the problem with that is that the size of the node module structure we do not know, because we cannot include node.h from node API.h,
Right.
because it's supposed to be a C file, and node.h is not a C file.
Mhm.
So it's not that big of a deal, because like the library constructor only gets called once per process. So
Right.
so it's not as if we had like an explosion of allocations if the module gets loaded multiple times.
Right.
But it is sort of untidy the way we do it, and so
Right.
that's the only thing I was thinking about, is maybe we want to tidy that up somehow. But I haven't had a lot of time to look into it. It's just something that we might want to look at, is to avoid this heap allocation.
Yeah, I mean, like, even with unloading, how often are modules loaded and unloaded?
Well, I mean, in the shiny future of Node.js, when you have thousands of threads coming in and out, then modules will be loaded and unloaded potentially many times. But they are only ever loaded by way of the library constructor once per process, no matter how
Right.
many threads
Right.
run.
Well,
So
that's
I'm
kind of
saying
like,
it's not
so,
that big of a problem.
right. And how many, it's sort of like, if it's once, and what's the total number of modules?
Yeah, exactly. That's basically, it's limited by how many modules an application uses.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not a huge deal. It's just a minor wrinkle that
Yeah.
I realized from having done the module unloading thing.
Right. Yeah. No, okay.
And another thing that is sort of looming on the horizon, but potentially no big deal, is this this node module version issue that we're having.
Yep.
With add-ons in general, where it announces itself as node module version 64, but you're running it against Debian, and so even though the node module version is correct, some of the ABIs are incorrect, and so we were thinking about potential solutions to that. And I'm trying to figure out how NAPI fits into this, because NAPI is kind of above the fray in this case. However, if the NAPI module uses other ABIs as well from Node, like OpenSSL or libuv or whatever.
The answer is, today you can't, if you use OpenSSL directly, for example, you really should be depending on the Node version, not, assuming NAPI fixes it for you.
No, yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, like we can't cover everything, right? But what I'm saying is that if we introduce a mechanism for declaring that this add-on supports, ABI version X of OpenSSL and ABI version Y of libuv and ABI version Z of Node itself, then how does NAPI fit into that, right? Like, do we become one of the many ABIs that Node exposes, or do we sort of stay special in that we don't really care? We have our own module loading mechanism.
I think we'd want to end up with it improving the situation, in that today we depend on the module owner doing the right thing. Yeah. I think in that case, like if there's multiple ABIs, and it's basically that, hey, you can, the way, in terms of the Node ABI number, I think what we do today would still apply, because that's still the right thing, right? You can use, as long as you're just using the NAPI stuff, you don't care what the Node ABI is.
Yes, exactly.
But it gives other numbers which the module owner needs to make sure match. Otherwise, that doesn't apply.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So okay. So then it sounds like, because I submitted like a proof of concept PR, and it sounds like it sounds like it is completely orthogonal to an API in that sense.
Right. I see it as it could improve things in that it would make it more explicit that. Now, I think the problem is like then you got to say, okay, like node pre-JIP and all that, how does it handle all those other numbers, right?
Yeah. Those tools will definitely have to be updated. Like the same way that Jim updated them for an API,
right?
They would also have to be updated for all the various APIs because, yeah, you could have potentially many more modules for like if you want to cover all the different places where
right.
Node.js runs, then yeah.
Right, and so I think it makes it better in terms of like those tools would then naturally do the right thing. Whereas today, the module owner has to be aware that says like, well, if you're relying on an API, don't reach into OpenSSL.
Well, yes, and that would continue to be true, but they would have the option of building their module in such a way that if they do reach into OpenSSL, then they are aware and they have a way of declaring that,
right.
that this particular shared object is built against OpenSSL version X.
Well, it would be more of, in my mind, it's more like it lets you declare yourself as an NAPI module, even if you're doing some of those things, because you'll have the safety harness from those other things, the checks on the other numbers.
Yes.
Whereas today, you really shouldn't declare yourself as an NAPI module if you're doing some of those other things, because it removes the one safety check, which bundles all those different things.
Yes, together. Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that the net result is we'll end up with an even better story for.
Okay, so then okay, but I think in terms of the two proposals that have been raised, which is to have this registry, like Rod proposed that, and then Ali proposed the
bits.
The bits. I don't know if either of those would work. Because we need this ability to say I don't care about certain ABIs, right? And so if you do it with the bits, now you're committed to caring about all ABIs all the time, right? Like you could set some of those bits to 0, but then we have this situation where our ability to multiply load the module depends on the loader finding a certain specially named symbol in the add-on. And so if we have a very, very complicated version which supports zeroing out this and that, then we're going to have to start regex searching for symbols and just libdl does not support that. You can only do explicit string search for a specific symbol. So that's out, I think. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the problem with the registry is that it's ultimately the add-on has to announce what it supports rather than Node having this. Or maybe I misunderstood, like, or does the registry indicate to the add-on maintainer what kinds of things to build for, because then we can solve it with the registry plus
well, the registry just gives you a single. I think the idea was a single number. Right, it was just trying to avoid overlap among the node.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that would sort of fall back to the same situation we have today. If you're going to reach into OpenSSL or some of these other things like libuv directly, you shouldn't declare yourself as a NAPI module.
Yeah, and the problem is that if the single version number is different, then you basically, then you're back to using as many binaries as there are different ABI implementations.
Right. Versus Yeah, like each build, if you're not going to use NAPI, it's basically there may be an Electron one, you may have a different.
Okay, but wait a second, because if you only care about one ABI, right? Then the registry doesn't help you either, because let's say you only care about OpenSSL, so you're going to provide a binary for each OpenSSL out there, like the official distribution of OpenSSL and the Debian OpenSSL and whatever, right? You're an Electron OpenSSL, so that's 3, right? But there will be more numbers resulting from like, you know, different ABIs of libuv or different ABIs of V8, or, well, not V8 is probably a deal breaker anyway, but let's say there are two different libuvs out there, right? So then you don't care about libuv. Those three binaries will work on every version of libuv, right? But now having two different versions of libuv causes more of these numbers to appear, which you need to cover. Right.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Exactly. Like you, but right. Like if an electron uses a different version of any of the dependencies, it kind of has to put a different number out.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But
and
but
you're
if
right
you don't,
that your module may not care because it doesn't use a different
exactly.
version.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but can we conclude then that the don't care scenario can only be addressed by the module declaring the ABIs it cares about, and then Node.js deciding based on that declaration whether or not the module can be loaded? That is the only solution, as I see it.
That seems like, let's see. So if it says I need these versions of the different things,
and they all line up.
Yeah, that seems the safest. Like basically, if you care about these things, then yeah, you shouldn't be loaded, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that sounds good. So on the flip side, though, so then that means each binary needs to also state which ones has to know which ones it supports.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean I haven't had time to really think about that discussion going on, but it does seem like like what you're saying makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
like you basically say, I care about these, and if you don't care, then it's like, fine, yeah, the module can be loaded.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So one number can never cover the don't care scenario, because the numbers will be mismatched. Right?
Well, one number can do it, but you end up with the potential of an explosion of binaries.
Yes. Yes.
And
yes.
it also means that things like NAPI may not be as useful.
Right.
Well, no, I guess NAPI is okay, because you basically say, well, I don't care about any of them, is effectively what you're saying.
Exactly. That's right. Yes.
I haven't used, and today that means I haven't used OpenSL. I haven't used libuv directly.
That's right. Yeah.
It would be more flexible if you could say, well, I do care about the other ones, but I don't care about the Node API because I'm using an API, right? That would let you,
right.
Even though you've reached in. And for example, on the libuv front, if it hasn't changed, which it rarely does, you're still good.
You're effectively ABI stable. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that puts us in a better state. That's true.
Okay. All right. Good.
Reduce the number of things that you would need to, the number of binaries you would need to maintain.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that was the other thing. I have nothing else.
Okay, that sounds good. I think we're all still, sounds like recovering a little bit from the holidays. A little bit of a slow start to get started again. So we'll take a few minutes back, and then we'll talk to everybody next week.
Okay, very good, Michael.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.